The human eye is an organ that detects light and converts it into electrical signals. It is approximately 2.5 centimeters in diameter. The eye is composed of more than 2 million working parts. The cornea is the transparent outermost layer of the eye that refracts light. The iris is the colored part of the eye that controls the size of the pupil. The pupil is the opening in the center of the iris that allows light to enter the eye. The lens is a transparent structure that focuses light onto the retina. The retina is the innermost layer of the eye that contains light-sensitive cells called photoreceptors. The fovea is a small pit in the center of the retina that is responsible for detailed vision. Rods are photoreceptor cells in the retina that detect dim light and are responsible for peripheral vision. Cones are photoreceptor cells in the retina that are responsible for color vision and visual acuity. The optic nerve transmits visual information from the eye to the brain. The human eye can distinguish about 10 million different colors. The eye blinks an average of 17 times per minute. The eyelashes help protect the eye by keeping dust and debris out. Tears are produced by the lacrimal glands and help keep the eye lubricated. The average blink lasts about 1/10th of a second. The eye is the second most complex organ in the human body, after the brain. The human eye can perceive depth and three-dimensional images. The eye is connected to the brain through the optic nerve. The human eye is most sensitive to the color green. The eye adjusts to changes in light intensity through the iris and pupil. The eye can distinguish between about 500 shades of gray. The human eye can focus on objects both near and far through the process of accommodation. The retina contains specialized cells called ganglion cells that transmit visual signals to the brain. The eye is protected by a bony socket called the orbit. The eye muscles allow for movement of the eyeball in different directions. The human eye can detect motion at a rate of up to 60 frames per second. The eye produces a watery fluid called aqueous humor that helps maintain eye pressure. The eye can distinguish between different shapes and patterns. The human eye can process visual information faster than the brain can consciously perceive it. The lens of the eye becomes less flexible with age, leading to a condition called presbyopia. The human eye can adapt to a wide range of lighting conditions. The eye has a blind spot where the optic nerve connects to the retina. The human eye can see objects as small as 0.1 millimeters. The eye can perceive movement in the periphery better than in the center of the visual field. The human eye can focus on objects as close as 7 centimeters. The eye's natural lens can change shape to allow for near and far vision. The human eye is capable of involuntary eye movements called saccades. The eye has a protective layer called the conjunctiva that covers the front surface of the eyeball. The eye contains cells called melanocytes that determine eye color. The size of the pupil can change in response to emotional or physiological factors. The eye has a reflexive response called the pupillary light reflex, which causes the pupil to constrict when exposed to bright light. The human eye can detect ultraviolet light, although it is not visible to us. The eye has a transparent gel-like substance called the vitreous humor that helps maintain the shape of the eyeball. The eye's ability to see in dim light is enhanced by a pigment called rhodopsin in the rods of the retina. The human eye blinks more often when a person is talking or reading. The eye has a tear drainage system that helps remove excess tears from the surface of the eye. The human eye is sensitive to changes in color temperature, which affects our perception of white balance. The eye has a natural defense mechanism called the blink reflex, which helps protect it from foreign objects or sudden stimuli. The eye's ability to see in low light conditions is called scotopic vision. The human eye can perceive a range of depths and distances through a process called binocular vision. The eye's ability to see in bright light conditions is called photopic vision. The eye has a protective layer called the corneal epithelium that helps shield it from external damage. The human eye can differentiate between different levels of brightness, known as luminance. The eye's ability to maintain a clear image during head movements is called dynamic visual acuity. The human eye can adapt to different color temperatures, allowing us to see colors accurately under varying lighting conditions. The eye contains specialized cells called horizontal cells and amacrine cells that help process visual information. The human eye can detect and distinguish between different levels of contrast in an image. The eye has a reflexive response called the blink reflex, which helps protect it from potential harm. The human eye can perceive depth through a process called stereopsis, which relies on binocular vision. The eye's lens becomes more rigid and less flexible with age, leading to a condition called presbyopia. The human eye has a natural blind spot called the optic disc, where the optic nerve exits the retina. The eye's ability to see in different levels of lighting is called adaptation. The human eye can detect and perceive different textures and surface details. The eye's ability to maintain focus on moving objects is called pursued eye movements. The human eye can perceive and differentiate between different facial expressions and emotions. The eye's ability to quickly shift focus between objects at different distances is called accommodation. The human eye can detect and perceive the direction and speed of moving objects. The eye's ability to maintain a stable image during body movements is called gaze stabilization. The human eye can detect and interpret visual cues such as depth, motion parallax, and perspective. The eye's ability to maintain a consistent level of image brightness despite changes in lighting conditions is called brightness constancy. The human eye can detect and perceive subtle changes in facial expressions, indicating emotions and intentions. The eye's ability to perceive and interpret visual patterns and designs is called pattern recognition. The human eye can detect and perceive the curvature and contours of objects, enabling us to recognize shapes. The eye's ability to maintain a stable image on the retina despite eye movements is called image stabilization. The human eye can detect and interpret visual cues such as shadows and shading, providing information about object form and depth. The eye's ability to detect and differentiate between different levels of lightness and darkness is called contrast sensitivity. The human eye can detect and perceive subtle changes in color, enabling us to differentiate between different shades and hues. The eye's ability to rapidly shift focus from one object to another is called visual attention. The human eye can detect and perceive the direction and orientation of lines and edges. The eye's ability to detect and perceive fine details and small objects is called visual acuity. The human eye can detect and interpret visual cues such as motion, providing information about the speed and direction of moving objects. The eye's ability to maintain a stable image during head movements is called vestibulo-ocular reflex. The human eye can detect and perceive the size and distance of objects, allowing for depth perception. The eye's ability to rapidly adjust focus between near and far objects is called accommodation reflex. The human eye can detect and perceive changes in light intensity, enabling us to navigate different lighting environments. The eye's ability to detect and interpret visual cues such as texture and gradients provides information about object surfaces and materials. The human eye can detect and perceive the motion and speed of objects, allowing us to track moving targets. The eye's ability to perceive and interpret visual illusions and optical illusions is an example of its complex processing capabilities. The human eye can detect and perceive subtle changes in brightness, allowing us to discern fine details in an image. The eye's ability to detect and interpret visual cues such as perspective and relative size provides information about object distance and spatial relationships. The human eye can detect and perceive changes in color temperature, influencing our perception of warmth and coolness in the environment. The eye's ability to maintain focus on a specific point in space, despite other distracting visual stimuli, is called selective attention. The human eye can detect and perceive the orientation and tilt of objects, allowing us to recognize objects even when viewed from different angles. The eye's ability to detect and perceive changes in motion and direction is crucial for activities such as sports and driving. The human eye can detect and perceive subtle changes in facial expressions, providing important social and emotional cues. The eye's ability to detect and perceive subtle differences in color saturation allows us to appreciate and differentiate various shades and intensities of color. The human eye plays a vital role in nonverbal communication, conveying emotions, and establishing eye contact. The eye's remarkable ability to adapt to various lighting conditions and environments contributes to our visual experience and perception of the world.